Okay, just let us know if you're ready from back there. Okay.
All right. Well then, let's begin. Yat shik edo shidene she Elberhaski and she look jagai dat nasha although she ho and I just want to thank every single one of you who attended. Well, and there's probably going to be more later throughout the day, but it means so much to me that everyone here introduce myself a little bit, talk about myself and the journey in terms of what Dine Bizaad means to me. So, before the app, before everything, to me, it meant carrying on my language, my culture, my stories, my prayers. And that started at the ripe age of Head Start, when I attended Navajo Head Start in Lukajagai. My mother shipped me off, I remember crying when I attended that school bus. And furthermore, I went to kindergarten up to first grade in Lukajagai Community School, in which we learned more about Navajo language, and it was very immersive. At the time, I didn't know what that was. I just knew, from there on, I still knew that Navajo was my entire life. And then from there, I went to Tseid Sol Denepa Oshta, in which it was also Navajo language up to my 5th grade. And in 5th grade, I transferred out. And it was only until then I had a culture shock, in which from there on, there was no Denebazad. And I was like, wait, so not everyone in the world knows about Denebazad? So that crashed my world for a minute. And from there on, I always felt like I was looking for something to cling back to and learn. And it ended up having to create a Navajo language lesson for my peers. You can probably guess how that went when you have a bunch of 7th graders trying to listen to another 7th grader. So, and from there on, I just feel like I always wanted to do something for the language. In this case, it was building a Navajo language app. And so this next slide is actually outdated. I forgot to update this. So, Yate Shay Alberhaski, look Ajagai Dan Asha. I am not 2 years old, I'm actually 25. And I just want to introduce this and try to bring this presentation to the world. I've been presenting for this for a while, and I wanted to show you the journey of how it became. Because like when it comes to software and Navajo language or culture, it sounds impossible. And I'm here to try to, discourse that. So, Ako, what is the parallel between coding and culture? That looks very it's distinct. But there's actually a strong correlation between the two. And I like to say it is discrete mathematics for me. And, you may ask yourself, what is discrete mathematics? For me, discrete mathematics is math without numbers. Now that sounds a little bit impossible. And so my favorite example, before we get into that, let me show you this example, is called this card game called Set. In a card game, you kind of claim a set of patterns, and once you see the set of patterns, you call set, and you win that card set. And then you count up the numbers, and then the total numbers determine the winners at the end. And so why I like this card game Set, and why it's a great idea for showcasing discrete mathematics of math without numbers, is because of Boolean logic. You're constantly testing yourself, is it a true or false, In this case, this is an answer example in which, can you describe the pattern for me? In this case, for me, it is iterations, 1, 2, 3, or in this case, that's a pattern. Another pattern is different shapes, diamonds, squiggles, and ovals. Another pattern is they're all different colors. So that's 3 patterns we recognize. And the last and final pattern is they're all different colors, green, purple, and pink. And different shading actually as well. And so when it comes back to introducing that into culture, my favorite example is the Navajo clan system and how we ended up determining this for ourselves for the color-coded combinations. And even the little lineage tree in terms of just determining Nick A. And so this is an example I want to bring up. For an average person, when we introduce ourselves, in this case I'm person 1, and this is a random person 2. So my name is Ashin, not my name, Ashin Shlan Twahiglini Gazaslan Kiani. And then the other person introduces themselves, and then I determine, oh, we're related. And And so you may be asking, why? How are we related? And so when we introduce that color concept that a lot of these schools are introducing is color combinations. In this case, ashihin, yeah, you could have determined that from the get-go. But also, kazasando deschini are also related to one another. To the point that you don't even need the clans themselves. But of course, in our culture, we do need it to understand where we come from holistically. And that's where it brings me to the Navajo verb system. This is also another wonderful example of discrete mathematics, because you got yishkla, so toyishkla is a first person, present tense, singular. And then yishkla, which is first person, past tense, singular. And then kango todeshkini, which means first person, future tense, singular. And mind you, for each verbs, there are about 36 multiple combinations. But they all kind of follow that discrete mathematics pattern, also known in computer science as an algorithm. And that's another thing I also found out when it comes to learning about the Navajo language, in which it comes to like simple things like the Navajo numbers. This also has an algorithm in there as well. That, Nadine Aslai, which is 21, but then when you go to 30, you say Tadin Doba Ant Aslai. So you add that Doba on after 20, and then from so on. And so we have that distinct algorithm everywhere, even breaking down the sense. And so this was the first prototype of my first app. Before Dine Bizaad, it was actually called Adone. And Adone ended up had to be its own standalone app. And the goal of it was to just find out, how are you determined and related with one another, to simplify the clan relationship. And so it allowed me to fully realize my dream of, combining culture and coding and programming to one another, something I thought was impossible. And I remember dreaming of solutions and code in my head. And at one point, I had a eureka moment. I gotta wake up. I gotta test out this idea. And I woke up, tested it, didn't work. But it was in my head, and I knew if something told me if I can figure this out, I can figure out the language. And that was the first step I needed to finish first. And so I'm happy to say that Adone has been available for 2 years now. And so then the next question was, Haj, where next? Which leads me to the Net Reboot, this event, this wonderful event that I'm happy to share with you all. So I'm happy to announce that the Bizaad is available on both Apple and Google Play. And so you may be asking yourself, what is the Bizaad? For me, I envisioned the Bizaad to be this language learning tool for intermediate and eons. Something I wanted for myself once I left the classroom of Navajo language. I wanted more, and I was never able to figure out where to go for that. And I'm sure many people who also on their journey of learning the language face that same issue. And so the Bizaad has a really nice in-depth dictionary, and it has a convert page and also mini games. In this case, I like to call quizzes at the meantime. And so it's been a 2+ year journey, So little insight onto the clan probability and how that even came about. I took an internship in Indiana University in 2022 of the summer. And in there, we were doing a lot of analysis on biostatistics, but I wasn't interested in that. I learned about coding in R, and I thought, okay, maybe actually, I think I can figure out a probability of clan system. So it came up with the simple question of, what is the probability of two Dine being related to one another? Boy, did I not expect that to be a difficult question to answer. So what I was actually asking myself was, okay, we don't know the probability of how many clans the first person has, nor the second person. And on top of that, we don't know what clans they both have. And if we're trying to be, conformative to the clan groups, they need to not have the same clan groups as well. And so I ended up having to create a whole solution. The probability of two Navajos not being related is about a 50% chance. But your chances go immediately slimmer if you both have 4 clans. And so that's what led me to Adone, and then, catalog building the Navajo language digitization. And that's one thing I just want to bring up real quick. When it comes to programming, software development, you often think that coding is like the hardest part, right? The part you have to wrap your head around. But once you understand it, it's very applicable to everything else you apply. In this case, since I've been learning the Bizaad for the entirety of my life, I kind of found coding a little bit easier to deal with compared to the Bizaad. And so the challenge was actually digitization. There is no record, no digital archive of our words anywhere. And that goes for many other tribes, I'm sure, as well. And so I'm happy to say that we have it at Najon Studios in-house. And I think it's important that we do something like this, because without it, I think other people and other industries might take hold of that and try to garner that before we make our first move. And so the Bizaad actually has about almost 30,000 words included, and it's counting each day by day. And what do I mean by digitization? Do I mean like a piece of paper and I scan it? No, I mean hand typing it, something you can copy and paste. Where can you find an archival database like that, especially for Dine Bizaad with English and Dine translations? Nowhere. And I'm happy to say that. That's the work that we do. And I think the design process for Dine Bizaad for me was smooth, seamless, and a little bit quiet. You know, you want it to not like be too proud, of course. You want people who are in, you know, on their own language journey to really deep dive into what they want to learn. And I'm just really proud about the work that we did. And so the verb browser is like one of my favorite things I was happy to design, because it was just something I envisioned, and I've heard a lot of struggles from people when it comes to talking about the verb complexities when it comes to learning the Bizaad. When it comes to the verbs, we stop. We're like, okay, this is too much for me. I wish there was a class for this. I wish there was more resources for this. I'll come back to it another time. And so we tell ourselves that. I told myself that. And so that's why I wanted to break down that barrier, and why I wanted to make it an app as well. That I want to put this in the palm of your hand. And if it's in the palm of your hand, you have no excuse. Although the general dictionary was a little more simpler. It's usually a one-to-one coded, and of course the word details as well. As you may see, there's some missing features, but we are working on it. And I just want to quickly gloss over some other features that Dine Bizaad has besides the dictionary. It has the Convert Hub. If you don't know what the Convert Hub is, like I've said and disclaimed earlier, the Navo system, when it comes to telling time, numbers, calendars, and money, actually is like an algorithm. And so we have an algorithmic approach to it. And so it was a lot of like copy and paste, and you can kind of just tell the computer, just do this because this is how our system works. And so with that in mind, it allowed me to build a system that can tell time instantaneously. You can choose a custom time to learn for yourself, along with a calendar, today's date, and any number that you want. But I'll showcase that in action later. And of course, a mini game to test yourself and your knowledge. In this case, right now, how I've been using it has been testing my verbs knowledge, and I'll showcase that a little more. And of course, we need phonetics just for the basics to get you moving. So I think before we finish this quick slide, I think let's move into the demo. So this is Dine Bizaad in its glory. So let's go into Convert. So right now the time is 11:31 a.m. And so I don't know if this has sound, but in this case I don't need sound. I can read it. So what it's saying to me is nakit ada de adorneje nadinas eda aljinjitzi, which means it's 29 minutes till 12. And that said it right now. You can check your phone. I'm not too sure if your phone's on the same time right now, but then you may ask yourself, okay, how about any other time? Well, let's try 10:30. And alcohol says nezna do'ashni, which is 10 and a half. Calendar. DJ a ansho domo yaje hastat ada go yoshkal. any date. So in this case, let me choose, let's choose my birthday. DJ A benent aunt sotomon nadine goyos kath. And as I've seen before, I don't know. Let's hope for audio. Okay, nope, no audio. Sorry, but it does have audio for that part. This one usually blows everyone's mind. I'm gonna have to ask the audience for this. Give me a number. 3031. Okay. Sorry, is there an issue with the projector? It's not quite streaming this part. All right, can you see that? Okay, actually we got it. All right, my apologies. So let's go to the time real quick. So this is the time right now. Okay, sorry, you guys were all confused. It's working, it's a working demo, my bad. So right now it's 11:33. Let's do that right now. So nakat'ada di adolsle nadin sos da'jin yitzi. So it's 23 minutes till 12. And actually, if we can wait a few minutes, I think we can actually see the time change. So once the minute changes, and mind you, this is all hand-coded, hard-coded, and based off of our Navo algorithm, I like to say. So in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Oh, and you just saw it change right there instantaneously. Nadine hastada ajin. So, yes. There's no, we don't have audio.
You could hold the mic.
Oh, that's a good idea. Okay, so actually, let's do mic. So this is the audio. So I don't know if that came across, but you heard it. And let's do the calendar again.
DJ A Tanso Demo Yaje Hastans Ada Go Yoskas.
All right. Okay, now let's get back to the presentation again. Any number. Go as high as you can.
I mentioned 3011.
3011. Agoshi.
Ta Demil Yaje Dobaan Sats Ada.
Instantaneously. So, why not? What the heck?
Nahast A De Nesnadin Dobaan Sabidin Dobaan Sost Demil So Dobaan.
I think you get the idea. I will not let that run for a while. So then you got the numbers. Okay, I don't know what's going on here. Okay. And we also got peso, money. So in class, it's often kind of taught a little funny, so that I know everyone's going to have like a trick question and be like, can it do 25 cents? Guess what? It can. Nadine, or not Nadine, sorry. Now, kiyaz, 2 bits. And then how about 50 cents? Din yaz, how about 75 cents? Hastayaz, okay, how about $1? Well, oh, that's 10 cents, my bad. Doklish. Peso. And so let's do, let's name the price of this app right now, actually. So the Bizaad is available for Nadine Doba on Din Peso Doba on Hastayaz Doba on Nakidoklish Doba on Din Chi. And that's kind of broken down by cents. So it's saying like 3/4, 2 dimes, and 4 cents. Oh. And my favorite part. And this is I think this is the foundation of why I created this in the first place, I would say. I struggled with verbs. So, and I'm sure if you're struggling with verbs yourself, let's do this and let's do a live demo together. So, na honeye. So we don't have audio right now. We are currently working on that. But besides the point, if you can read it, I think it would really be helpful and integrate into your life. So na honeye, I don't know that word. I'm gonna guess. Na honeye or ne. My bad, I said that wrong. I want to say it means to play. So I want to so if play associate that with the game. So I presume it means to lose in a game. I am correct. I did not know that word. I am learning that word, and I just introduced that into my new vocabulary now. Na hone yeah, to lose. So how about intermediate? What does intermediate look like? So this one is actually the word itself. It tells you the word. So the word is happy, have pleasant thoughts. So I believe is like past. So if it's past, so I assume it's bith means them. So third person, past, singular. And I am correct. And that's for the verbs, so intermediate level. And so then what is expert? It's actually a combination of both. So a be. So I don't know that one actually. I want to say be. I want to say swept. I'm wrong. Okay. And it continues into the second part of the game, which means you're learning the versions of the verbs. So we know it's be, which means to win by chance. So need be. So need, I notice in a pattern when it comes to verbs is dual. So in this case, I'm going to say it's present, dual, third person. I'm wrong. And I'm learning. So that's the important thing right now. And so I can train more vocabulary. I forgot, I glossed over a feature. We actually have a word of the day. And I'm sure that's one thing I've also struggled with is building more vocabulary with the Bizaad. And so in this case, now I learned a word called adenego. So when they migrated. In this case, I want to favorite it, and it can show up in my new favorites list. And it is available right there for whenever I want to learn about it. And so we actually included a dice so that if you don't like today's word and you want to keep learning, you can just press that and it brings up a new word. And it is pulling from our over 30,000 word catalog. And you can keep going as fast as you can, it won't crash. Oh, sorry. And the phonetics, they also have sound. I don't know if you can hear, we'll try to pick it up. And so that is to help you build your understanding of pronunciation a little more effectively. But we have more games in here. So word builders, for example, numbers. So in this case, I don't really quite know this one yet. So let's see. I assume it's ashkladin is nadin dobaan hazait ada. In this case, I know it. And so it's just to make the Bizaad just so interactive and engaging for every single one of us that, you know, this barrier shouldn't be limited to one space, that we can grow and integrate it into our lives. That is my dream for the Bizaad, to integrate it to our everyday lives, that we don't have to be ashamed of it. And it's not such, you know, barriers behind it. Just like how Balta is that we're able to give for me, I want to be able to give back. And I think that is it for now. I'd love to do more demos later. Is there any questions?
Is there any functionality where you can type in a basic sentence, or just like, you know, I ate the apple? Or are you working on that?
So we are actually working on that, and it's just a lot of work, you know. And I think it's just because as a software developer, you know, engineer, you want to think about solutions with the least amount of work. So we're kind of lazy in a sense like that. Oh yes, no, most definitely. Exactly. I do have an idea for that.
So my mom, she used to say, Navajos speak like Yoda. You know what I mean? So when I type in English, today I ate the apple, you know, apple I ate today. You know what I mean? So it's like, I'm sure there's to kind of get an algorithm, right, an intelligently dynamic thing, it would have to kind of observe natural language, like natural Navajo speech in everyday life, and then be able to like break it down and then reassemble that. You know what I mean? But I just think I was just thinking maybe you're probably already working on it, but that's how it might work.
Yes. Is there any other questions for everything that's been presented? Would you like to see any more demos?
What type of feedback do you get from the outside world?
What you expect, both positive and negative, and they're both justified in their own right to express themselves like that. My favorites are, and they say, I haven't been home for so long, this means so much to me. You were able to reach me in a way that no other have. And they always come from a background of saying, my parents were always in boarding school, and so they were forced to not speak their language. And that's always heartbreaking. And so then what can they do? They live across the world sometimes, and this is my way of able to reach them.
What about the information, the state of Arizona way of their language compared to New Mexico?
I had a very interesting conversation with that, and I'll put it plain and simple. No matter how much updates, no matter how much care I put into it, it'll never please anyone. They will always say, shit is mine, mine's better.
That's right.
Is it easy for a non-Navajo speaking person to use and learn from?
So we are working right there at that moment. So for now, at the beginner level, what we can offer is just the phonetics, and you just practice, understanding. It's in you get an ear for it, and so that's where the phonetics come in. So and then when it comes to vowels, which can be complex, and I understand that. So like this one right here, how does that sound? Without audio, I have an idea of what that looks like now. You can kind of mimic that, and that's actually where that game kind of comes into play. And we actually have that in here. So listen and guess. So let's do. Phonetics, yeah. So do it right here. E. And so you can develop a sound for it and visualize what you can do for it. So that is right now the beginner of what we can offer.
How are they employed with Nijon LLC? What is it?
So Nijon Studios, yes, it is a product of Nijon Studios at the end of the day. And let me show you about the team. So the team behind it was actually lead developer. In this case, I was the main ones creating it. But we also had Shema, who was the culture advisor. And then Jordan Goldtooth, who was also the software developer, I was able to hire to build out other parts of the app that I just didn't feel have the time for in that time. And then Brittany Jean, who was the logo designer for it, who was responsible for that look of a horned toad. That's a good question, and the truth is I feel like it was majorly self-funded. There are very rare cases I did get outside funding, and I know you'll probably say, well, why didn't you ask so-and-so? Why didn't you ask this? And to follow up with that is, I have multiple times. And, I'm not here to name names, and I'm not here to call out anyone. But I've tried, and I've tried my best. That's actually a great question too. So let me ask you this. So let's say someone came up to you and said, hey, I can make you $1 million. Would you believe them? Exactly. And so that's how I kind of envision this work as well. When you say, I can make you a Bizaad app with over 30,000 words, with all this and the features, and it can even have more, and even audio. Would you believe that? Yeah, exactly. And so that's the issue I face. And unfortunately, some grant writers just, and I think another great advice I got was, that was actually really well preserved. I know I said that we don't have a digitization, but we are pretty well preserved. And, you know, we're not high priority in this case sometimes. Keep going.
And her tribe, her family, were trying to get the wax recordings back into the tribal. So I think it's, you know, it's what do you call it? Paradise. It's funny how there are organizations out there trying to work on American Indian, indigenous, whatever you want to call it, language revitalization. Sure, they have money in museums and stuff, and then I can talk to you, and then you say, I asked, you know. So I just, I think that's an important story for you to have.
Yes, and actually, besides the politics, I think the other thing is, I don't know, it's just so much work. It is a lot of work. You know, I'm trying to envision myself thinking about what I just did, and I'm thinking, who else would have done this? Who else would have sat down every single day and typed out over 360 words a day? You know, what was my drive? I don't even know sometimes. And I think it's just because I do love the language a lot, and I want it to be carried on eons from now.
Shiaj, I have a question. So, where in this app do you see Amado Aje, Ache, Amasana, Anala Hasti, Anala Istam, our role in continuing to help Ma'achin, the Nebizad, Yidahofla? Where is our role in this?
Oh, so I like to think of that as you guys are on opposite sides of the canyon, and the Nebizad is able to become that bridge for you. Because now I can go to Shema and ask, Shema, how would you use this in a sentence? Maybe she's a little more, you know, advanced than me in that sense. That I would say, adajish klish. Klish. Is that not how you say it? You know, we go back and forth, and it opens that door for more conversation, more Nebizad in the household, you know? And then I'm like, oh, hey, I just got a new word today. Infirmary. That's a long word. Why is that a long word? Introducing more conversations, more questions into the household. And that's what I want to bring.
Okay. Yeah, for your presentations. It's fascinating. It's really great to see what you've worked on, what you've been able to accomplish. I'm curious if you could talk about, so you started to touch on a little bit of how much just the basic conjugations for one verb, right? And it's actually huge, right? Even just for one verb. How big, and then there was a question about, you know, doing basic sentence structure, you know, maybe talking about a little bit of the grammar, the function, forms of language. That's a whole other big thing. How big are you thinking of making this app? How many different facets are you thinking it would go into? Like when we talk about all the different modes of the language for one verb, right? It's daunting for some people that when they realize how much it can be to learn. But as as you've talked about, it's a lot to just input it, right? How big are you thinking about going in terms of, verbs and grammar and sentence structures and all those types of things? If you could talk about that, I'm gonna squeeze in two questions because I think some other folks did too. So one is that, how big are you thinking about going with all these facets? The other is, what are the applications that you see? Like, who do you hope is gonna use this? How are they gonna use it? Individuals? Are you thinking about programs? Are you thinking about institutions? What are the hopes that you have for this to be used going forward?
All right, to answer your first question, I can actually answer that pretty well. It depends on how much memory I'm allowed to use. And secondly, does it cost me anything? I designed the Bizaad to work offline. And when you download this app, you can be out anywhere and you can use it. And that is the main goal with it. The moment you start introducing, servers and everything, who bears the cost of that? I do. My company does. In this case, I try to figure out what limitations I can have, and it does push me to be more creative. And audio was actually just a huge challenge from the get-go. You say, like, it sounds easy, so, all you do is just record and then just ship it, right? Well, when you're talking about a size of over 30,000 words, guess what? For verbs alone is only 14 gigabytes. And why is that such a big deal? Because Apple and Google, mainly Apple, has a limit of 4 gigabytes. And so if you ever look up any Navajo language apps, or any language apps, they have, look at the size that you're downloading. It doesn't go over more than 4 gigabytes. So that's my challenge. And then wait, before you even further ask, how does Duolingo do it? Because when you download Duolingo, you're actually you're actually downloading the launcher. And so when you see the Navajo language course on there, you're actually contacting the server and downloading from there, and which is probably more than 4 gigabytes itself. And so we're having to push our limits and get more creative in terms of how we can fit a small file size onto this app. And I want him to go big or go home, like my dream is to have everything speak for the most part in there, within reason. And to answer your second part, how I envision this app being utilized, my dream right now is, I'm going back to Sayed Sultan top. From what I've seen, I want it to also be of use to Bostas. I really think they could utilize this if they see what it can do. And what I mean by that is it's not supposed to be a replacement for them. It's actually supposed to be a really strong helping tool for them. Because listen, at the end of the day, when you ask the teacher, can you give me a random word of the day? I would love to learn a new word of the day. That seems like so much pressure on them. What are they going to do? Pull out a book, flip to a random page? Don't get me wrong, I'm sure they can do that, but to do that for 365 days in a row, that can be taxing. So in this case, when you let the computer kind of do it, you really do integrate more ease of life. And maybe they don't have to focus so much in time and energy on the word of the day. Now they can really get into the depths and meat of the sentence structures. Allow more time to be involved.
I was just wondering, in the future, would you be willing to mentor other tribes to form and develop something like this? Because I'm actually Hopi, but my reason for being here is I have a grandson who's half Navajo, and he's been learning Navajo at the boarding school, and has taken a very good interest in it, and kind of speaks pretty good. So we wish we all had someone in our tribes that could spearhead something like this for everyone to use, because our language is dying. The Hopi language is dying. There's not that many speakers anymore, and this sort of thing would really help us. So that was my question.
Yes, and yes, we can. It's a lot of work, and thankfully it is a kind of a copy-paste work methodology, I would say, at this point. It's not really, do we have it? If your tribe speaks it, you have it. I think that's what matters at the end of the day. In this case, what you're trying to do is just build the catalog, and that's the hard part for me. I have to build my own catalog. And so once you get a catalog, I think it's kind of a home run from there. You kind of figure that out. It would be awesome.
Okay, so you mentioned Duolingo, and you mentioned it goes through your servers. So it sounds like, okay, number one, you have some kind of server set up that's proprietary, that's locally based, that you own. Or are you paying for like some like Amazon Web Service? How does that work? How much does that cost you? And then you also mentioned, okay, so how big is the file? How did you compress that? So it sounds like if we were to get a truly, so what I'm thinking of, okay, because I know the Navajo language can be contextual. So it changes depending on the content. Like, so you have different definitions of words, and I was thinking more of like, actually like a web, because English is so far removed from the structures and mechanics of our language and the way that we construct things. So it's more like, I guess I'm thinking like way down the line, and you know, amazing job, like everything is cool. I'm just thinking like there could be like onto like the Navajo words. And I'm just thinking how like this file would have to be massive to get like a 100-year-old Navajo elder like on that level of fluency. But for me, that's where I want to see it. You know what I mean? Because okay, and then okay, so I'll tell you also a use case for this app. I worked for Indian Health Services, and I worked on remote cistern projects. And I went out to the most remote areas, 2.5 hours on a dirt road, and I met with elders, and it's just me, project manager, college education, came back home, did the whole thing like everybody told me to. It was a lot harder than everybody said it would be. And there I am with a Navajo elder just in my government vehicle, language barrier immediately. And I can pick and, you know, words and try to say things. And sometimes the elders are, encouraging, and sometimes they shut down because it's like an outsider mentality, because they're like, well, this guy doesn't speak my language, this guy's not of the community, you know, this guy's from the government, he's showing up in this government vehicle. If I had this app out in the field, it would have been a huge help. So I wish I had the app, you know, a couple of years ago. I'm not out there in the field anymore. I guess first question is your self-hosting. How do you pay for that? How do you manage that? And then second question is, do you see the app being able to is that the final version of this app? Is that 100-year-old elder fluency? How big would that app be? It can be done. You're doing.
To answer your first question, no, we don't have a server. And no future plans to do so at this time. Just because I just like the idea that it's there, you kind of own it, and you know, you don't. I think when you introduce a server, there's something along the lines of now you have to connect. Now it's always searching for a connection, which could bog down the slow time. And you know, as a user, you just want it readily available. The idea is to be a pocket handbook at the most, at the end of the day. And then, what was your second question? Sorry.
The level of fluency that the app could eventually have.
Again, I think at the end of the day, for me, I don't see it ever achieving that high level of fluency, because, like you said, it's very context heavy, you know. And I think that goes for all these chatbots too, you know. If you ask it very certain, like if you told me you fed it data about it, it doesn't know who it is because you haven't fed it data. Language speaker bot, it wouldn't know, come out of thin air. It's reading it from somewhere. Any other questions?
So you get a lot of, well, from what I've seen,
Instagram page itself, a lot of people are really worried about, especially in the App Store. You know, what are your thoughts on people who say, oh, you're giving away all of our, like, this super sacred thing to people where they can access it, you know, for a certain amount of money? What are your thoughts on that? I'd really like to know.
Yes, no, that very great question. One, I'm gonna say this first because it is very important to me. Anything cultural, I removed. I did not stop anyone else from doing so. I don't want to include that from the get-go. I don't want anyone to take that and, you know, utilize it and learn it from my own creation. But when it comes to like learning words like besh behenna, I don't see a problem with that, you know. And I think the other thing is, my question to every single one of them is, am I the first to do so? It seems like it, if that's the case. You know, when it comes to the Navajo code talkers, I'm not too sure if you're well aware of it, but it's been declassified for a very long time. It's easily searchable. There's a handbook and a user manual on how to decode it meticulously. There's books. Where do you think I got these words from? I purchased my own catalog. It's everywhere and it's out there. It's always been available. And so, you know, I urge them to research, and if they do strongly feel about it, I also urge them to also call them out too. Not just me. The ridicule I face is unfair, I'll be honest. Why is I Dine the only one facing it? And I'll be honest, I've seen non-Dine work on this, and how come they're not facing the same justice as I am? Any other questions?
There were anthropologists who came to our reservations immediately after they were implemented. And they came with the Indian will be dead narrative, that we were a dying race. That was in the literature of American scholars during, you know, turn of the century. And ironically, the only way to access some of our oldest and most sacred ceremonial proceedings. So what you're doing, you're Navajo, you're Dinesh. How could anybody from the community stand up and try to tear that down? This is preservation. Like I'm saying, I saw this app. I'm thinking about going out to bridge that gap. What if I had an app that could be completely fluent, that would make me one-on-one question your work? I would say, are you spending the time with your elders to make sure that that 100-year-old fluency doesn't die? Because now it's on us. You built the gateway. Now it's on us to take this, learn the foundation, and talk to them and actually spend time with them. I don't understand any criticism here. Sorry, but
Shay Bernahasi in the Shay. Albert A. Shay. I'd just like to say, I'm just gonna make a statement. I'm not gonna ask a question really. I think this app is something that has been in the works or needed for a long, long time. And it's a new version of trying to communicate our language mainly to the youth, because they're on their phones a lot or computers all the time. And, you know, I'm a teacher and I see a lot of students on their phones all the time. And if they can get this app and they can start, you know, playing around with it, and they could probably pick up some of the language like that, because the phones and the computers is their world now, at this day and age, and I think this really kind of caters right into their, into them, because it's at their fingertips, and it's nothing they have to go look for in a classroom, or they'll go to class and learn language, but this will kind of supplement that and help them learn too. So that's why I look at this app, and I think it's it's something that will really hopefully get things going with our youth to maybe take an interest in learning the language a little bit more, and not just only learning it in the classroom. Maybe they can get the spark in the classroom and then continue with it, playing on their phone with it. Maybe sooner or later they'll start putting things together and putting words together, and they'll be able to maybe talk to each other, maybe carry a conversation on, a small conversation. You never know. I remember when I was in boarding school, about I think about 80% to 90% of the students spoke Navajo. Now in the classroom where I teach, no one speaks Navajo. I ask him, hey, the neck eche yalche, or hey, the neck eche yal. It's I ask them that, maybe I have one or two raise their hand. The rest, nobody raised their hand. So maybe it can change that around a little bit. I don't know. That's all I have.
Oh, yeah, sure. I think that's what I wanted it to do at the end of the day, to reach an audience that has never been reached on this scale before. We've seen many attempts to, but I wanted to go beyond what was possible. Reach for the moon. Actually, let me tell you a quick story about this. I just want to quickly shout out to Change Labs too. They were able to put on this amazing event for me. And I remember I came here and the coach said, throw out your wildest ideas. It doesn't matter. And at first I was like, no, I'm going to keep it realistic. I'm going to see what's actually achievable in my own head. At the time I joined Change Labs, I had no coding experience. I didn't think I was that confident enough to build a language app in the first place. But I just thought, what the heck? You know what? I'm going to throw it out there. I threw in technology. I threw an idea of what this language app could look like. And I was still even being pessimistic about myself and saying, oh, it'll only be a web app because I don't think I'm smart enough to figure out how to launch it onto Apple or Google, And it's still shocking me sometimes to this day right now to think that, oh, I did it. It's right now, it's right here. What I've been talking about for years on end, it's in the palm of my hand, and I made it. And would have been possible without all of your help. Everyone who worked on this team, developer, graphic designer, voice, everyone I've met, you've all played a big part in this, to reaching this level. And I'm just proud to say I've done it for not just myself, but for you all. Yeah.
And it's like a new world, new beginning because of the technology. I mean, we can say 40 years ago, 50 years ago, I wish we would have this, but we didn't have cell phones, we didn't have the technology, and I think it really changed, and that it's time. It's that time to go forth, because the outside world say that the Navajo language is dying another 10 years. And I've been interviewed at being asked, you're losing your language. I said, I'm still standing here. I'm standing on Mother Earth, and I still know my language. And so that my language is going to take me further into life. And so with your app, with what you're doing, there's a lot more you can do. And yes, there's going to be a lot of people that are will support you. And we're already seeing it. We're online streaming, and people are interested, so they're beginning to come in. So good job.
Yeah. Any other questions?
My answer was what would the phone that what the money to put the cost of all that the
I did not catch that. I'm sorry.
Ja, wat is dat dat boom daar dat kaartmannen voor de guava pas van wat talen en dat de talen met de oren wat dat boom. Dat we dat mannen dat boom ik oren dat de people van Navajo or what?
The English Navajo or Hopi?
This is, I know that gets confusing nowadays.
He's asking for the cost.
Oh, yeah, no, I hear that a lot, usually from audience members and social media. It is one time, $25. Steep price, but I think it's worth it because you own it. I've designed it for you to have. And with subscriptions, that also meant servers, so I didn't want to deal with that.
Follow up to that question, great question. You talked about adding more into it. Will it update and add whatever else you add?
So
into
when
it?
you buy it, you get access to free updates from here on out.
You have an idea how many people are actually on this app as of today?
Good question. I have no idea. Maybe 500.
Google Play.
Available now on Google and Apple. So actually I flipped it a long time ago. But the event is more of a celebration right now. And actually, before we end, I'd like to play a game. And in the spirit of the Bizaad, we have four. Oh. Okay, go ahead.
I know I got the app, so it's awesome. It's pretty seamless, so I've been playing around with it and I think it's fantastic. But we've been hearing questions being fielded from the audience. I kind of want to know, what's a question that hasn't been asked that you've been maybe thinking about, that's been on your mind, that you could maybe answer and share with us, that you've been maybe preparing for, or you've been thinking about that hasn't been asked?
Okay, yeah, that's a great idea, actually. Data sovereignty. We hear that a lot. What the heck does that even mean nowadays? I'm proud to say that we do enact data sovereignty. The fact that I'm doing this is enacting data sovereignty. I get to keep this data. I get to keep that catalog. I have it. It's on Navajo, and it will stay on Navajo for as long as I get to see it. And I think it's important that when we take initiatives in our own tribes to do that we are enacting data sovereignty that way. When you invite an outsider to, like for example, that person at Duolingo, I don't know exactly their names, where'd that data that they archived, where is it now? Is it in the Duolingo database? We'll never see it again. How about Rosetta Stone? You know, great work, but where is it? You know, I know we can buy it for software, but didn't you want to go back in there, maybe add more to it? Maybe do we want to add more in the future? Give us control over our own data and our own language. And this is where Dine Bizaad really comes into play. That, you know, when you ask for certain features, I'm happy to say, you know, yes, we can, we'll try, we will do our best to add it as much as possible. And I think data sovereignty is very important when it comes to this, because again, I'm not saying names and I'm not naming names, but it's out there and people are using our language and our data to build their own model and their own AI bots. It's happening, and you know, it's important that we figure out a way to protect it in this sense. So, let's do a quick game. I have 4 gift cards, 2 Google Play and Apple. So what that means is basically, if you have an Android phone, please participate, because I'm not too sure how many Android users we have amongst the crowd. And also Apple. So these are all $25 gift cards, so it should be almost enough to get it. You should pay like the difference, but we'll be fine. Basically a free app. Anyways, let's play a game. And in the spirit of the Bizaad, let's play a game to test your knowledge. And so let's do, that's a good question. What should we start with? I think we should really push ourselves. Let's do verbs. And we'll do 2 easy, 1 intermediate, and then the final one will be the last one. So first round, we're gonna go for easy. What's that? What's this English word? GS. GS. And first one to say out loud the answer A, B, or C, D. GS. No, that's as close as we can get. G-ash. J-ash. J-ash? Oh, J-ash. What? B? Ooh, let's try again. All right, Gushin. New word. Dahijdile. Dile. Dahijdile. B? Who said B? Who said B? B?
Who said B?
Gushin.
Way.
Oh, B. Who is the winner? Okay. Cool.
B in the back.
All right, let's do another one. Go ahead. Pick your choosing. Although, let's see. Let's do. Okay, one more for this one. Hoho nit. Hoho not. Nit. Struck in a tight space. A. B. D. Okay, tell about something or someone. The God. No, let's do it again. Before we continue, look at this. We're interacting with the Bizaad right now, real time, and this is an example of how it can be used in the class space if you want, right now. Cool. Yo ajad B. Correct. Come up here and grab your gift card of your choice. Oh, hi. Oh, see? Oh, yo. All right, okay. Easy's done. Now let's do, well, that was not really Dine Bizaad. We're going to go expert. And this one's going to be a little difficult. You're going to have to get 2 right in a row. So, we'll make it challenging. Bicha niji ra. D. Oh, wait, upset. We gotta get the second part. All right, so we know that version. Now, which tense is this? Yichanaya. Yichanaya. First person D. Okay, D. It's past singular. Yeah. It's when you, so okay, for example, let's do a little quick lesson. Whenever I hear I usually associate that with past tense. Keldan, ever hear that? Keldan, let's try again. Who said it? A? A. Ooh, who said A? Christine, all right. Second part. Guess the second part. Hadogol. C. All right, okay. Maybe this is really difficult. Maybe we need to learn on our verbs. Yeah, see, that's fine. That's all right. Okay. Let's bring it back. Let's do let's go a little simpler. Let's see. I don't even know. Let's just do simple word quiz. Let's just do words, no verbs this time. So, Dine. A, B, C. Who said B? Oh, C. C. You say, oh, cool. All right, wait, one more. Nas, he already won one, sorry. We need winners. We need more fluents. Nas, Z, D. A? Who said A? Who said A? Who said? Oh, cool. A. Jonah, come and get your choices. Apple or Google? All right, okay. You got an Apple? All right. Okay, so please answer, and you will get. Ne es. Sorry, es. Ne es. C. Who said C? Sorry, man. You keep winning. Sorry. Do another. Okay. Well, C. Now the ga. Ooh. Okay. All right. Shike a chogi. A? A. Jone. Nah, you win this. Oh, apple. Oh, good shit, that was it. Oh, you just saw it work real time, how it can be integrated with the classroom. Oh, I know that.
Pages, you could maybe like make like a fun game, like a game show.
That is a great idea, yeah. But again, maybe that's an idea for someone else to do. I only made the app.
Yeah.
I can only do so much.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah, that'd be great.
I mean, a little more recognition, I guess. I mean, everybody. I'm sure everybody, and they hear about it. So a lot. Like you can make it like maybe like a game night for families that come together.
Jonas, no, not only are you giving me ideas, but you're also giving community members ideas. Think about that. And this is how I want it to affect the net.
The gathering of people like during the Navajo Nation Fair. Yeah.
You had a question?
What about Kazoot or something like that, where the kids can press it on their screen and it shows a scoreboard like that? I was thinking like, dude, you should totally do something like that, because I'm like, oh, I wish I had a screen I could just press it and do all that. But yeah, I was just suggesting that.
Exactly. See, the possibilities are endless to incorporate the Bizaad in the household. I broke down that barrier now to entry, and so, I'm a perfectionist. Sure, this app isn't my dream right now, and I'm sure you've all asked that about more updates and everything. But at the end of the day, if I didn't make the decision to release this very soon, it probably wouldn't have come out for maybe eons. And I told myself one time, once I graduate college with like a bachelor's and get a real job in software engineering, then I make some money and then I go back off. Probably get started on this project when I'm 27, 25. All right, any other questions? Going once, twice, anarchy. I hear to everyone who's attended, it really does mean a lot. And if you want to see more demos and you want to speak to me more one-on-one, I'd be more than happy to. Cool. I hear to Navajo Nation TV live stream for the great work that they're doing, for providing service. I hear to Joel for doing the video work. It means a lot. Cool. Yeah. And photographer, I'm sorry, I forgot your name, man. But
Oh, Raymond.
Raymond, yeah, thank you, Raymond. Cool. LA Jim, not Jim, sorry. LA Williams, yeah. Cool, and thank you, Change Labs, for giving me the space and opportunity. It was Change Labs who also believed in me. And so if you have an idea that you think you can probably, pitch, I'd highly recommend Change Labs for you. And yeah, shema doshije, doshitsele, doshik shanai, if you're watching, shade, yeah.
Awesome. Johnny,
When I got here earlier, they were getting set up. So right now, there's going to be food outside, and I did want to echo what Albert was talking about and sharing today. This is a real testament to that you're all witnessing the true spirit of native entrepreneurship that is existent in all parts of the Navajo Nation. You see that little Navajo Nation, the Hopi tribe, all over tribal nations across the country. This is just one small glimpse and picture of some of the incredible, talented entrepreneurs that exist, and Albert is definitely testament of that. And I wanted to let everyone know Change Labs does have the spaces for, if you go into the website, look at events, we have a number of monthly events, workshops, different types of classes you can attend both in person and virtual. And this space right here in Tuba City, this is an incredible, remarkable space that does allow individuals from the community, if you're passing through, to stop by, take advantage of the Wi-Fi, get some coffee. We do have networking events throughout the year, and the best part too is you can also sign up for one-on-one business coaching with a number of our business coaches. They have different specialties in different areas, from coaching with business financials to marketing to different elements of developing and creating your own business. So if you need that, definitely come make use of this space and take advantage of all the resources. And there is lots of material like this all around. Make sure you all grab some, so that way you can become familiar and you can also advocate for what we're working on, trying to empower and create the resources available to make native businesses succeed like Albert.
Very well said. You're at the right place. So thank you, Change Labs. Thank you for the updates. Makes it very interesting, and get more information here in the heart of Tuba City Western Agency. And thank you so much for having us as well. this happening. So how many of you, show of hands, that just now came in? So you want to see that, right? Okay, we're going to redo that, but get some snacks up back here, then we'll lead right into it. So you got a lot of good information. The Bizaad. There you go.
Oh, so we probably had some more time, and I'm sure you guys will probably have a lot more questions this time around. So I'm gonna make it brief, more brief this time. So let's start when I was born. So, gata shikerushne, she overhasking she look ajiga dan asha, although she though I am not 22 years old, I'm actually 25, and I keep forgetting to update the slides. So, before we even talk about the Bizaad and the app and the amazing accomplishment of this work, let's more jump into the complexities of it. More specifically, coding and culture and the parallels between it. And this is often a thing that I found myself wondering, is it even possible? And the question was, if I can make this, is it possible I can go further beyond into language? And there it is. In this case, discrete mathematics. And for those who don't know, discrete mathematics is math without numbers. And math without numbers is often kind of a hard concept because we always associate math being numbers most of the times. But my favorite example is this card game called Set. I was introduced to this card game at Navo Math Circles, and which, when you find a pattern, you call out set. And then before then, you then have to defend yourself and why it is called a set. In which, in this case, this is an example of an answer in which you need to recognize patterns. One big glaring recognizable pattern is 1, 2, 3 iterations. Next pattern is they're all different shapes, diamonds, squiggles, and ovals. Another pattern is different shading, hollow, striped, and solids. And the last and final pattern is all different colors, green, purple, and pink. So that is an example of discrete mathematics, just utilizing Boolean logic. And so now the question is, how the heck does this correlate to culture? My favorite example I always love bringing up is the Navajo clan system. And as a kid, I always got introduced to these like clan charts. And once we were introduced to them, they were like, all right, just color code them yourselves. Like at one point, I remember we wore bracelets in which we wore colored beads. And if we had a matching colored bead, then we were related. In which, for example, my test for you guys is person 1 and person 2. How are they related? We often like to say Ashin, as those are two glaring options. But in the next slide, we actually see that they're also related by another clan set called Kazaslane and Deschini, in which it's utilizing the clan groups system, which I want to say is an algorithm of ourselves, I guess you can say, that can be easily correlated to code. So much so that you don't even need, the clans themselves. But of course, clans is our identity, and so that is, we don't need to be doing that. But another example I really want to bring up is the Navajo verb system. This is an example of a book of the verb system and how complex it can be. And so, for example, toyishkla, which means first person, present tense, singular. So, I drink water, just now. Or toyishkla, which means, first person, past tense, singular, in which I just drank water. And then tomorrow, so yiskango todeshki, which means first person, future tense, and singular. I'm drinking water tomorrow. And so, this is only three examples of a 36 variation combination set. And so that's how complex this verb system is, in which our algorithm has to kind of determine. And it's seen in everything else, I say. Even like Navajo numbers. We have an example in this case where, when we go all the way up to 10, and then to 10 to 20, and then 20 to 30, you go Nadin Atla, 21. But then when it goes from 30 beyond, we start including Dolba'an. So we say Tchadin Dolba'an Atla, which is the pattern. So Dolba'an is, on top of. So that is an algorithm that we give ourselves in a sense. Which leads me to my time at Indiana University, in which I asked the simple question of what is the probability of two Navajos being related in a room. And so the idea is you don't know how many clans they have, and you don't know what clans they are, which led me down this rabbit hole of creating a probability simulator in which I basically made 1 million combinations of people being related. and the probability of two Navajos being related to one another without knowing how many clans they have and what clans they are is a 50% probability. But your chances completely go way lower when they're 4 and 4 clans. It is a 1 in 10 chance now you're highly related. And so that led me to building this app and the system behind it of now navigating the clan system through technology by using an algorithmic approach, which led me to my first app, Dine. And I created this based off of that experience I had in Indiana University, in which where, you know, if I thought to myself, if I can do this, I think what's the next step? Let me go further. In which I remember just thinking all hours of the night of code and solutions in my head. And so that brings me to now. What am I doing now? I decided to go further and beyond with the Bizaad, something I always dreamed of. I've had this idea in my head since eons. I didn't really tell you this story before in the first session. I remember one time we were talking about entrepreneurships and ideas in my third grade classroom. I forget what I pitched my first idea, but the teacher loved it, and she was like, "Oh, that's great." And then when it came to the second one, she was really critical of it. And I don't know why, but it might have been the idea was, "Oh, I want to make a language software." And the whole idea is you place a disk and it teaches you. And that was the idea of it. And kind of crazy that idea kind of fruitioned into this further. And so I think that is the first recollection I had for an idea of creating a language software. Did I have any knowledge of code? No. I didn't think I'd have to learn code. But that's where it led me to, I would say. So I want to say, before we continue, I'm happy to say that the Bizaad is now available on both Apple and Google for $25. And the feature list that the Bizaad has is a dictionary, conversions, and minigames, in this case, tests. And so the journey to get here was, of course, creating that Navajo Clan app, and then leading me to Dine. But that was like, you know, the high, and then it got super low, because now the hardest part was building that catalog. With over 30,000 words, who do you think digitized that? I did. I manually typed everything out, because there is nowhere on the internet but that catalog. So, which allowed me to build the Bizaad. And utilizing that catalog, we were able to, you know, include so many variations of games, conversions, and just new words to just build your vocabulary now. So, yeah, and that just brings me to the part of that. The coding part was actually the easiest, funny enough. Like, it was a quick uphill battle, but once you learn code, everything can be applied. You learn a new language, and software kind of comes easy now. But when it comes to building the words and the content, that was a different challenge altogether. And so my dream with the Bizaad was actually to make it, you know, very streamlined, you know, easy, least amount of taps as possible to get to the words you want. And of course, native typography, you know, making sure all the diacritical marks are there for the most part. And, you know, everything is the native, you know, native tongue from the get-go. That was my main goal, to incorporate your language in your everyday life, you know, that it becomes a bridge for you. And so this is an example of the verb browser, in which you can look at the catalogs with over 312 verbs in there. Actually 311, correction. And each of them have 36 variations in there. And so as you can tell, you can see the conjugation, in which you do the present, past, and future. And we'll get into a demo later. And of course, it has a general dictionary. And of course, the word detail, and more in depth if you want to learn the definition of each word. And you can actually favorite them. And so, another section besides the dictionary is actually the conversion, the games, and the phonetics. The conversions was actually a favorite of mine because, you know, when you're learning Navajo language and you take a Navajo language course, you know what they end up doing? They always end up including a time section where you gotta tell the time, count numbers, do the calendar date. And so why not include that into the whole section? And it was very much an algorithmic approach because it was always copy and paste what I kind of saw and which was being taught. And I thought, that's so easy to implement, so let's just figure this out. And once I figured that out, I was like, this is great. This is amazing. And just like pushed me further that, okay, I can make a catalog. I can make this going. And so that came to be. And with the mini games, I wanted to be, give yourself an option to really test your knowledge, And, I'm talking about this from a perspective that, you're doing this by yourself. And of course, I think learning any language by yourself is, I would say, nearly impossible. And so, I'll show you an example of how the Bizaad can be used with Monkey. But before we continue, any questions? I cannot disclose that at the moment. Okay then, let's get into the rundown. So this is a walkthrough of a live demo right now. And this is available right now, so everything you see is available in the app. So, verbs, we can do the verbs. So there's 12 variations for present, past, and future. And for example, I want to remember that word because that is my favorite word apparently. To be stingy, I hope not. And so now it always pops up in my favorite word catalog. Now we've got phonetics, and so this is the big one that I'm very proud to have is audio. So we have vowels, consonants, and everything in here. Oh. And so it helps you understand phonetically to understand how to pronounce certain things. So these are just the building blocks. Oh, and of course, before I move away from this page, my favorite feature too is also Navajo Word of the Day. Navajo Word of the Day, I'm sure you've heard a lot of people talk about this, maybe your own institutions and everything always try to implement it into their workday life. But mine is better. I'm kidding. Reason why I think it's very much needed is because I always found myself to have a weak vocab in the Bizaad, in which I wanted to build upon that. And so, for example, I don't know this word. Bath kis. I didn't know that existed besides it. And so that is very neat to know, and I want to favor that. Now I know it in my new catalog. But let's say you don't like the word of the day. You can choose between any random catalog that you're pulling from the 30,000 word database that we have. And so now let's get to my second favorite thing, conversions. So for example, right now it is currently 1:39 and it is telling the time perfectly. And so we do have audio for this one as well. So it's very formulaic and allows us to be even more creative. And so, for example, let's do 12. Immediately changed right there. Actually, before the time. Let's see if we can see it change in real time. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and it changed. And that's the beauty of code. It can just kind of run for you in the background. And of course, we have today's date. And of course, numbers. And this is my favorite part because I get to interact with the audience. All right, give me a number, any number. High number, please. Like complex. Make it complex. Okay, 1982. So I would play the audio, but it's gonna take a while. Okay. So asla admilyaje doba on hast a naznadin doba on sepi doba on. Okay. But if you need further proof that audio works. And voila, that works. And of course, everyone's favorite usually tends to be money. I don't know why. People want to count cents. So, for example, 25 cents, nakiyad, which is 2 bits. 50 cents, dint yad, 75 cents, hastan yad. It's all there. Easily built in for you. You need to figure out the change and the change you need to give up. I hope you don't need to get that back, but. And of course, we have a conversion of the day, just like features that you want to learn more about. And of course, we have games. My favorite section. One we actually just implemented that's very new is to build up your sound and your phonetics. You know, if you're having struggle understanding, like really trying to listen, hopefully phonetics is there to teach you. And so if you want to just focus on vowels, E, which one's that one? For me, I know that. I don't know that one. Okay, yeah. See? Hey, see, you guys are interacting. You guys are learning. Consonants. Yeah. Yeah, C. So then we got mix if you want to really challenge yourself. Eh. Okay. Yeah, so you're building a sound for it and you're understanding it more phonetically. And of course, we implemented all those, numbers, months, days, and everything for yourself. It's also, does anyone know that one? Exactly. See, you're using it. Oh, okay. Now let's do. Oh, sorry, we already did. Oh. Beautiful. All right. Okay. Days of the week. Monday. Oh, who said that? All right. So of course that's the beauty. So those are sounds, and we plan to update more, of course. Right now the verbs and the generals don't have audio. So to answer your question before, that is one area we want to, further emphasize. But I'll tell you the technical challenges that we're facing with that right now. And of course we have numbers if you're able to read. And of course this is other. So just a little more easier to work with. But my favorite thing is the verbs. And like, many of us have challenged, I'm going to test myself. Ba hojilnet. Ba hojilnet. I want to say net. Jilnet. I want to say it means to run from. See? Nope. Tell. Someone said that. Who said that? Me. Oh. See, I didn't know that, but now I know. So, and then this is the tougher part, which is the variation of it. So that was just one verb, but remember, each verb has 36 combinations. So, ba hodeshnet. So now, dash, I always know dash, something of that word as in future, because I'm training myself and I'm understanding more about the verb system. So first of all, I know it's future. So dash, so ba hodeshnet. So I want to say future, second person. So net is them. So no, I'm wrong. It's actually first person. I wouldn't know that part. But so that's one example of the verbs. You're teaching yourself understanding, building your vocabulary, getting more confident. Yes. I would recommend that you contact us through a website in which it is called www.adolnet.com. But in this case, we had to normalize it, so it's spelled ADOONEE.com, in which you can go into our tab to contact us. Any recommendations on how to improve it, or any, we will keep it in mind, but also to not get it bogged down with a lot of other features, we also try to keep it streamlined, make sure everything is corrected. So that is an example of that. And then word builders, this one is, I would say, second favorite of mine, so ashkladin. So ashkladin, you build the word. But, spelling is actually really hard just because we don't have audio. But once we have audio, I think it would really, really be something to use. Let's see, spelling. Like for example, destroy it. I have no idea what this is. So we can just, get hints. It's like, okay, dash, or de. Yeah, I'm just gonna use all the hints. And so, a day is deed. So that's how you spell it. But once it has audio, imagine how more effective that would be. And so that is kind of why I'm also showcasing this, because when you do purchase this, you're also supporting the initiatives. And I'm always wanting to try to include more help in this project to make it the definitive way to learn Connect, I would say, or utilize, the most resourceful tool out there, because we deserve the best. I think that's it in terms of feature list. Is there any other questions? So actually we do, so the voice credit is all in the About Us page. So this is the team, the developer, culture advisor, UX, UI, Gabrielle Jack. That is all located in there. And anyone who works on this project, who I personally pick, get their name recognized. Any other questions?
From English. And I think that's amazing because I can look at the word and then I can see how you're supposed to say it.
That's actually really interesting that you brought that up, because when you build from a Dine perspective, native perspective, you think native first. And so this is an example of when you develop native first. Why, if you're building culturally relevant stuff, it is important to build native first. Before anything, what comes up first? Native words first. And searching up native words is first. If a non-native developed this, the littlest thing could change it. They would make it English first. And to me, that is a design flaw when it comes to immersing yourself in the language. You need to be immersed and jumped in. You know, yeah, it's daunting at first, but you know, if it was English first, would you have ever tapped into the Nabble side? Oh no, it's probably too hard. I don't want to deal with that part. So you jump in right away. And so that was a design philosophy. But yes, of course, yeah, English is amazing to have in there. So if you want to look up dog, it's in there. Yes. Any other questions?
But is there, is there like a social aspect to it? Because I know like when you're learning another language, it can be, the hardest part is conversationally and when to use different words like in different contexts. So is there a social aspect of it, or is it just paired with your own kind of adventure, like choose your own adventure style?
It is definitely very much paired with your own adventure. For example, right now is probably the best example of it paired with your own adventure. For example, we were just doing this earlier. Let's all do a verb quiz together. So I'm asking the audience to do this part for me. So be just so. What is that? What verb is that? Be just sauce. Okay, inside a bag. We don't have anything that relates to bag. So we have blow into it, cut away, sauce, just sauce. Blow into it. A, correct. So yes. So notice that. Imagine I'm a Navajo language teacher, and now I'm more interactive with the students. And this is the best part because I don't have to think of a lesson plan. You know, I hope to make this part easier for you. You know, you don't want to have to like, oh, I gotta get all the lists and verbs. I think we did this before. I think it was. D, yeah, to walk about, yeah. Yes. All right. Oh, do you have a question?
On these verb quiz, is it like, for its algorithm, is it like repetitive, like its first 10 sequence and it kind of iterates it? Or does it utilize a whole dictionary?
No, let's test that right now, actually. All right, see if you guys recognize. Okay, we're just gonna test them. That's one word. 2 words, that's a different one. Yep. 3 words. Yep. We'll just keep going. Tell me if you see any copies. Oh, that's one copy. But that's pulling from our 312 verbs. So, no, we're not repeating, and we're not making the illusion that, you know, it's more than it really is. It is pulling from the dictionary that we developed. Any other questions?
Oh, wait. So where are you housing your app right now?
I don't know the crazy part. When you download it, you pretty much have it. So no internet connection needed at all. Which actually brings me up to the, besides the data sovereignty, I'll get to that part later. Audio. My favorite question was always like, audio, can we get that now? Listen, with over 30,000 words and when you record them all, it comes out to about 11 to 14 gigabytes. And that's just verbs only. And so Apple and Google only allow 14 gigabytes into their apps. And so you ask a question, how the heck does Duolingo and all these other apps do that? Well, those apps you download are launchers. And so when you get into the course and everything, you notice you have to tap something before you actually jump in. You have to download their language curriculum, and which could be more than 4 gigabytes in this case. And so my goal with the Bizaad is you download it, you have it. It's not a launcher, mainly because I don't want to take in the cost of downloading having to host your words for you. I think you do deserve to have it if you are paying this price. Yes, and so every future implement and updates that we incorporate always has offline first in mind. Any other questions?
Is it going to be available to different schools that you'll be selling your app to?
In terms of different schools, like desktop versions, we are actually working really hard on that as well. Technically, it is available on MacBooks, because actually MacBook has a app store. So if you go in here and I look up Bizaad, it pulls up, and I can download it right now. So, and let's open it. Thank you for that live demonstration. It is a little bit big, and we probably got to work on that. But look at that, it's on my MacBook. My phone is over there. I'm not so let's make it bigger. And maybe we gotta fix this part. But dictionaries, you want to put that to your kids. All right, let's do easy. Yeah, we'll definitely work on this part. But it's currently working right now. And of course, we want to implement more and update. Has the beauty of being the developer, knowing the developer. Oh, but Windows and Google, that one's a different story. And that goes for everything. And unfortunately, we are a small team, and we are trying to do as much as we can. Any other questions?
Or like longer, structured sentences at a certain point. Not saying like Duolingo, but how they've got like conversations where it's more words within the context of the language itself.
So I'm thinking in a perspective of, there's a perfect dictionary book, like a little pocket book, like the starter guide to the Bizaad. In there has phrases, and I think that is pretty much what you need. If you want to speak Navajo for you, I think it's a different thing you're trying to achieve. I think the goal is to speak to Net, and so it is supposed to be a stepping tool for you, and to kind of open the door for more linguistic fluent speakers. That, if I had a fluent speaker and I'd be asking all these questions, I think I would get way more out of it now. And on top of that, I can't provide this example just because I'm not the greatest fluent speaker. But I tested this app out with someone who was also fluent, and this was the funnest thing we ever did. We did a randomizer word, so we did this, and I strongly urge you, if you're an educator in the classroom of this, you pick the first word, so you write that down, dini, bin, da, we sit, okay. Then you write down the second word, yedes, sit, he pointed it. And the third word, in hast, nanal, ked. So, once you got those 3 words, now create a sentence with those 3 words. You will release the headache of yourself to figure out a random word and specialize a curriculum. You are actually really developing a deeper understanding of the language. That was my favorite example, and we were able to come up with amazing sentences with it. And it was just fun to challenge ourselves, and the language teacher was having a blast with it. Any other questions? Going once, and I think we're actually almost out of time, so I will save the remaining for 5. Any questions?
Updating it, and just kind of like whatever issues come to the board, like something comes up, like when I asked about like the algorithm and like how often it randomizes words, and if it utilizing the whole dictionary, how often do you guys kind of do like, oh, okay, we got to work on this or something like that? When do you guys do that?
So there's a lot of topics, but in this case right now, when I'm speaking for myself, is I'm the only one working on this right now. I do have a team, and they did help me with a lot of it to the finish line. But in terms of future updates, it is a lot of me, unless it deals with audio. I'm also having a team for that. So I can give you roughly, it it's just a lot of work. It's really hard to estimate it and guesstimate it just because there's so much features everyone wants, you know? Like I heard so many features everyone wants here today that I'm like thinking, okay, yeah, we gotta figure out how to implement that. But do I have time for that right now? What's more pressing and, you know, priority? I think that's the hard part. It's just figuring out, choose your battles, I would say. Any other questions? 3 minutes. I actually did recently, and that was one of my favorite shows. Yes. Or within your family group, or do you have to download each phone in your family group? So Apple actually has family sharing capabilities. I'm not too sure I can say the same for Android. I think Android does have something like that, but I believe you can only share up to 6 members. But yes, and I strongly urge any way you can to get this thing into people's hands. I strongly recommend it. Because what matters to me, yes, I built this at the end of the day, but what matters to me is you start speaking, you start getting fluent, you know? That's what matters.
What's the best way to stay up to date on updates or like announcements, or is there like a website or Instagram or?
Website. So stay up to date with the website. I'll maintain that one the most as I can. All right. I just want to say yeah to everyone. Change Labs, Navo TV and Film, videographers, photographers. Yeah. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Joel. And thank you, everyone who's attended. Yeah.